Hello, my name is Lloyd Chapman, and I'm the president and founder of the American Small Business League. The American Small Business League is reaching out to chambers of commerce across the country to get their help to help protect federal small business programs. Federal law states that a minimum of 23% of all government contracts should go to small businesses. That stems originally from the Small Business Act. And we think that the federal law that requires 23% of all contracts to go to small businesses is the most efficient, effective economic stimulus program in U.S. history. We know from the U.S. Census Bureau data that small business is responsible for over 90% of the net new jobs, over half of the gross domestic product, and over half of the private sector workforce. So I can't think of a better way to invest a minimum of 23% of our tax dollars than to reinvest that money back into the small businesses where most Americans work, where most of the gross domestic product is generated, and where over 90% of the net new jobs come from. But unfortunately, there's some attacks on these small business programs that we need your help to defeat. The first one is a program called the Comprehensive Subcontracting Plan Test Program. That's a fancy name for a loophole in federal law that allows Pentagon contractors to circumvent federal law that establishes small business subcontracting goals. In 1990, this test program began, and it had two elements. It eliminated all transparency, where the American people no longer had access to documents that they could show or see that contractors were complying with their small business goals. And secondly, it eliminated any penalties for contractors that didn't hit their small business goal. So prior to the implementation of the Comprehensive Subcontracting Plan Test Program, prime contractors at the Pentagon had to submit small business subcontracting plans and quarterly and annual reports that the public could see and monitor them to make sure they're complying with the law. If they didn't hit the small business goal, they had to pay liquidated damages in the amount of the deficiency. So if they had a $10 million small business goal and they just did $5 million, they had to give $5 million back to the government. So this program eliminates transparency and penalties, and certainly it hasn't helped small businesses. Our research shows that in the last 25 years that they've been testing this program, the small businesses have been cheated out of at least $1 trillion and maybe twice that much. So we hope that you will join us in trying to make sure that the Comprehensive Subcontracting Plan Test Program does not get renewed. Here's some language, by the way, that the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee wrote when he agreed to renew the program into its 28th year of testing. This is Section 811 of what's called the Chairman's Mark of the 2015 National Defense Authorization Bill. It says, however, after nearly 24 years since the original authorization of the program, the test program has yet to provide evidence that it meets the original stated goal of the program. So the United States Congress is admitting this program, there's evidence it works, but we're going to renew it into its 28th year of testing. The Government Accountability Office investigated it 10 years ago in 2004 and said this: although the test program was started more than 12 years ago, DoD has yet to establish a matrix to evaluate the program's results and effectiveness. The GAO 10 years ago made recommendations to the Pentagon to develop matrix to evaluate the program. The DoD refused, the Pentagon refused. Of course, the reason they refuse is you don't have to be a genius to figure out eliminating transparency and penalties are not going to increase opportunities, they're going to reduce them. So join us and contact your congressman, the White House, your senators, and get the members of your chamber to do the same thing and tell them that you do not want the Comprehensive Subcontracting Plan Test Program renewed in the 2015 National Defense Authorization Bill. The second thing I need your help on is the Small Business Administration right now is proposing policies to legalize contracting fraud and to take thousands of companies that are large businesses and allow them to be considered small businesses. So according to the Census Bureau data, 98% of all U.S. firms have less than 100 employees, 89% have less than 20, and the average American company, not the average American small business, the average American company has around 12 employees. The Small Business Administration is going to adopt policies that will allow a firm to have as many as 1,500 employees and be a small business. That's over 100 times larger than the average American company. It's 15 times larger than 98% of U.S. firms. So we view these Small Business Administration policies to increase size standards as a way of just legalizing fraud and trying to repeal the Small Business Act. When the average American company has 12 employees, does it make sense to you to establish a size standard to allow companies that are over 100 times larger to be considered small businesses? So join the American Small Business League. We're going to be sending you some information. The SBA is going to be taking comments on these proposed policy changes for about another month. We want the chambers and their members to send comments into the SBA, and we'll show you how to do it in the information that we will send you, to say you're opposed to increasing size standards to a level that's 100 times larger than the average American small business and 15 times larger than 98% of all U.S. firms. We view the federal law that establishes small business contracting goals, the law that requires that 23% of all government contracts go to small businesses, to be the most efficient, effective economic stimulus program in our nation's history, and the conference subcontractor test program and the SBA's new size standard policies will repeal that law. And it's going to cost America jobs. It's going to put small businesses out of business. It's going to hurt every community in America. So even though members of your chamber may not be government contractors, this is the largest economic stimulus program in U.S. history to funnel existing federal infrastructure spending to the middle class. It's going to hurt everybody in America. So please help us in protecting small businesses. My name is Lloyd Chapman, President of the American Small Business League, and thank you very much.